This video is now in session, and the United States vaccine program has been going okay, but the US vaccinations rate could be much higher than it currently is, and it's a symptom of how politicized our vaccinations have been and how we have ruined another aspect of trying to end this pandemic. With the United States, currently around 40% of individuals have been fully vaccinated, while 50% of individuals have gotten at least one dose. And this means everyone from ages 0 to the oldest person in the United States, and that's a pretty high number compared to other nations. But for the United States themselves, they still have a lot of vaccines left, so much to the point where they can vaccinate everyone in the United States, and I mean fully vaccinate America and then some, and that means that this problem is less of demand, as political pundits say, and less of a problem of supply and more of a problem of demand. And this is a symptom of politicians meddling with vaccinations. Um, and it's not surprising that many people, especially in Republican states, are not going to want to get the vaccine. If you look at the states with high vaccination rates, all of them are Democratic. Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and as well as Maine. All of these states, Joe Biden won in the 2020 election, and most of these states currently have Democratic governors, with the exception of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts, who have Republican governors. Even in the territories, Guam is the only territory besides Palau that has over 50% of people getting their first shot, and Guam is relatively Democratic. It is a swing territory somewhat similar to Pennsylvania, but right now it's governed by Democrats. And it shows that it's again another sign of polarization, because if we see the states that have the least amount of vaccinations, it's Idaho, Wyoming, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Juxtaposing these two areas, the very dark green areas and the very light green areas, the light green areas heavily Republican, the dark green areas heavily Democratic, and that is because Joe Biden and Democrats heavily campaigned for the vaccine. They wanted to vaccinate America, but because they were the only ones that wanted to do so as politicians, and Republicans for the most part have not really signaled their support for vaccines, then you see only Democratic states getting vaccinations. And because politicians have mostly been the people who've advocated for vaccines, it's not a good sign for many individuals in rural areas who don't trust the government. Many rural individuals believe in a small government, not in a big government that tells them what to do and what not to do. And as a result, you see these states here not having high vaccination rates because they fear that the government is trying to do something against them. They have genuine fear that the government is trying to do something malicious against them, especially when Joe Biden is the president and Nancy Pelosi is the speaker. And when you have billionaires also touting the vaccine, like Bill Gates, then you also have people who fear about Bill Gates, because now we have people who think that Bill Gates implanted a microchip in the vaccine for them to distribute to Americans. And obviously, it's not true, because first of all, technology is not that good enough to the point where microchips can actually control us from the inside. But also, Bill Gates doesn't have any control over the production of vaccines by Pfizer, by Johnson & Johnson, by Novavax, by AstraZeneca, by Moderna, or any other vaccine being administered around the world. And for those who are vaccine hesitant, there's a lot of evidence that shows that these specific vaccines are safe. And literally just take a look at everyone who's already been vaccinated. Everyone who's been vaccinated, almost for the most part, with just a tiny few exceptions, have been fine, and none of them have died because of the vaccine. All of them have survived. So it shows that vaccines are safe, and the main point of vaccines is it's like drivers. It's like not a driver. It's like toothpaste. It's like also like brushing your teeth. You might not want to do it because it's a little bit inconvenient, but it's there just in case, so that, like your teeth, your health is kept intact. And it's like like driving seatbelts. I think the driving seatbelt analogy was either given by Bill Cassidy or another Republican senator, where it's like it's like not driver seatbelts, it's like seatbelts, passenger seatbelts. You might not want to put it on because it gives restrictions to you, but it's there just in case. It's meant for your safety. And that's exactly what vaccines do. But because politicians, and only one party groups of politicians, that being Democrats, have touted the vaccine, and because you have political individuals, health individuals who have become politicized, like Anthony Fauci, touting the vaccines, then you have people who are on the opposite side having some reservations about getting the vaccine. And that's not the only problem that we have to deal with now. We also have to deal with those who are hesitant to get the vaccine because of external conditions. And you can see here that the South area, the southern region, even though it's very Republican, there's also another thing contributing to the low vaccination rates, which are Black Americans. Black Americans are generally hesitant to get the vaccine because they think that there's something suspicious around them. And that means it takes even more people to quell those fears and to assure them that taking this vaccine is safe. Another problem is Hispanic Americans, Latino Americans, especially undocumented immigrants, who fear that getting a vaccine will put them in trouble because of their immigration status, because they're undocumented and because they might have potentially crossed the United States illegally. And while genuinely speaking, they should not cross the border illegally, they still should get their vaccines, or the United States should not deprive them of their right to a vaccine. And unfortunately, it is to the point where they fear that they might be deported because they got the vaccine. So as a result, they don't want to get the vaccine. And those are the major problems that the health community will have to deal with when it comes to vaccinations. And to do that, the main thing is politicians should not be voicing about vaccinations. Like, obviously, politicians want the United States to go back to normal, but the thing is, though, if they tout the vaccines, then they are a distrusted institution. Many people in the United States do not approve of Congress and do not approve of politicians in Congress. So as a result, having those people persuade Americans to get the vaccine is it's not going to happen. Instead, what should be done is rely on your local doctors, rely on local politicians. Because in terms of politicians, there are still a few that can be trusted, and that's local politicians. Because those kinds of politicians are not really affiliated with a party. I mean, they are technically affiliated with a party, either Republicans, Democrats, or an independent party, but they are genuinely independent individuals. Those who create legislation, those who create policies for their town, for their area that affects their residents day to day. And those individuals are usually a lot more popular than national figures, than people in Congress. Another group of people that can certainly persuade and help with the vaccination project is doctors, and I mean local doctors, not Anthony Fauci, because while Anthony Fauci might have a lot of knowledge on how vaccines work and could probably try to convince someone, he is so politicized to the point where he most likely will not be able to convince vaccine hesitant or vaccine deniers. So having local doctors, and most local doctors have already gotten the vaccine, by the way, but having local doctors persuade their patients to get the vaccine, their clients, will certainly be much more effective than politicians trying to do the same thing. And that's the main thing to do with vaccinations. Now, Biden said that he wanted around 70% of Americans to be to have their first dose by sometime July 4th, I believe. Obviously, it seems very unlikely that's going to happen, even though it's 50% having at least one dose right now. It's unlikely that it's going to get to that point in time. You see the 70% mark happening on August 27th, assuming that this trend line keeps going in this direction. So Biden will have to pick this up in that kind of pace, but it's unlikely to do that, and that's going to be a problem for him, and it's going to be a problem for Americans if they want to get back to their normal lives. And that's why the CDC essentially said that vaccinated individuals don't have to have a mask when they're outside. And they said that because they need to start giving incentivizations to people to get the vaccine. And that's why you see governors along the 50 states, both Republicans and Democrats, giving out very unorthodox incentives for people to get the vaccine. One example is Ohio. Ohio has their Vax-A-Million program, which means that Ohio is choosing 5 people who are vaccinated to get $1 million. And this is from the coronavirus money that Joe Biden and that Congress gave to these states like Ohio, Oregon, Colorado. All of these states are, Oregon and Colorado are exploring these kind of cash payments. New York is also exploring a cash payment program. And that is meant to provide more incentivizations for people to get the vaccine. In New Jersey, there's a lottery program where you can sit with the governor, and these incentivizations will get more and more unorthodox, but they're there because because politicians are trying to figure out how to get people vaccinated. But the solution here, like a lot of other solutions, is not politicians in Congress, but rather the people in the local community. And those are the people who can best help with this vaccination program and make sure that everyone gets vaccinated. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.